So, our first honoree is Reverend Dr. Holly Bonner, Director of Spirituality and Civic Engagement at Ryan College. I'm going to try to tell you everything that Holly does for Luminar without being here all night. You can read her impressive bio in the program, which does not include all she has done for us. About 10 years ago, from the moment we met at Betrini's, where she was the social worker, she has been consulting staff and our longest-serving and most dedicated volunteer, which she manages to pull her husband and daughters in on a regular basis. She has more stamina and gets more done than anyone I know, despite her health challenges, all while holding on to her sarcastic sense of humor. My first glimpse of that was when she began collecting items for Empowering Voices raffle baskets and said, "Who's going to say no to a blind woman?" The answer was absolutely nobody. She gets a lot of stuff. We have always had amazing and abundant raffle prizes, which she wraps with great expertise. Holly was our first Director of Education in 2015, creating our Teaching Artist Training Manual and post-play discussion guides for schools following our performances. She was also a clinical consultant for the planning of arts empowerment, both critical points in our growth. Most significant have been the many volunteer hours she has contributed to writing grants, which those of you in the nonprofit world know is very rare, and the most pivotal application resulting in an approved contract with the New York City Department of Education just 2 weeks ago. This was a monumental achievement that took over 2 years, twice as long as usual because of the pandemic. Holly wrote and compiled over 400 pages required by the DOE. I believe this will propel Luminar forward into a new chapter of serving many more schools, and I will be eternally grateful. Reverend Dr. Holly Bonner, please come up and accept your award.
We all should just take a moment of silence for all the printers and trees that we killed writing those grants for the Department of Education. I want to, she got kind of so upset when she started crying. I want to congratulate Lynette and Jeremiah, and I want to give a special thank you to Dr. Messina. You're over here? There you are. Dr. Messina, you've kept me alive to be able to do this work at Rumsey. And your hospital delivered my girls, and my girls were the first children vaccinated at Rumsey when you opened up the vaccines to the kids, so we've met before. And I thank you, because without your staff, I wouldn't be standing here. So thank you very much. I often say to people in the community that if I could write a love letter to Staten Island, I would. Some would say Pete Davidson beat me to it, but I strongly disagree. Because my love letter would be about the wonderful nonprofit community that we have in our borough. Our island's nonprofits are the heartbeat of this community. They look to address gaps in services, but they also serve as a connection point. Each nonprofit connects another cause or community group that broadens our reach and offers so many reciprocal benefits. And Luminar is such a wonderful example of this reciprocal work. Over the years, I have watched this organization grow and expand programming, but it's also expanded partnerships. From the JCC to Camp Good Grief to City Council officials to schools, Arlene and her staff have made sure that Luminar is a true community partner. And I have known Arlene since I was in my 20s. She actually knew me when I could see perfectly and when I had my own hair. So we go way back. And over the years, she has taught me a lot. We've spent many nights and holidays working on grants or editing scripts. She's given me professional advice. You've given me personal advice. You've given me motherhood advice. And she is also my Synfo board buddy. And though knowing Arlene and I have gotten, although through knowing Arlene, I've gotten to know her family. And I've come to understand how important it is to have a partner that supports you in pursuing your dreams. So I also want to acknowledge David, who has always been there to schlep our baskets and carry our centerpieces over the years. It's hard to do nonprofit work without the support of someone you love and who loves you. So while I'm on the subject, I want want to thank my husband Joe and our girls Nula and Aoife for always making whatever work I'm doing a family affair, even when you think I'm out of my mind, which is at least once a week. I remember when I told Arlene that I was going to enter the seminary. Like a lot of other people, she was a little confused. My husband was also confused. I know I don't fit the framework of what most people consider ministerial. I am exceedingly direct. I have been known to cuss a little, and most days I like to wear leopard sneakers with my clergy collar. And I'm legally blind. After losing my eyesight, I really went through a time where I was just looking for answers. And since I couldn't get them from the doctors, I looked for those answers from a higher power. And as an interfaith minister, I have studied the religious beliefs and practices of Buddhists and Hindus and spiritualists and humanists and Jews and Christians. And studying faith also showed me how different people grieve, and that helped me in my own grieving process over the loss of my sight, my hair, and some of the other changes my body has been forced to adapt to after battling cancer. As an organization of social workers, Illuminate really supported me during some of those difficult times. And I will tell you perhaps the biggest reason that I have continued to volunteer for this organization is because Arlene gave me a job when no one else thought I was capable of working because of my disability. I was the OG Director of Education for Illuminate. And for many years, she helped me to feed my family and stay home with my kids when they were infants and I was going through treatment. And that's something that we don't often talk about when somebody gives you an opportunity. Because I told you how much I love this borough and how much I love Staten Island's nonprofits. But in the age of DEI work, some people have forgotten the A. It's diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. And that's another area where Illuminate is way ahead of the game. Not only do Illuminate's teaching artists help kids talk about difficult social issues, but they address them head on. And Arlene has embedded that search for equity and equality in the very fabric of her organization. She's not afraid to ask the hard questions. She's not afraid of having a conversation about equity or diversity. Arlene's the first person to tell you she doesn't have all the answers, and she's made it part of her organization's mission to provide a brave space for her staff and her board to ask the questions we all should be asking. What can I do better? How can we make this island more accessible, more equitable? And I know the idea here is to celebrate your honorees, but I want to let you know that I celebrate Illuminate, because it's an organization that every nonprofit on this island should aspire to be like. I want to thank my friends from Wagner College who are here, my colleagues at Vision Services for the Blind. I'd also like to ask that we continue to hold the people of Ukraine in our minds and hearts. And I'm going to leave you with this. Today is Fred Rogers' birthday, as in Mr. Rogers. And I grew up watching him as a little girl, and he's one of my personal heroes. And many people might not know that he's also a minister. And Fred said this: "It's not the honors and the prizes and the fancy outsides of life which ultimately nourish our souls. It's the knowing that we can be trusted, that we never have to fear the truth, that the bedrock of our very being is good stuff." Illuminate is definitely good stuff.
Well, thank you, Holly. That was once supposed to be about me, but okay.